Good evening, and welcome to Doctorpiece Theater. My name is Dr. Dennis Business, and tonight we will continue our dive into the Inferno by Dante Alighieri. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that I'm as lost as Dante. Dante stands in the middle of the bridge over the fourth Bolgia and looks down at the souls of the fortune-tellers and diviners. Here are the souls of all those who attempted by the forbidden arts to look into the future. Characteristically, the sin of these wretches is reversed upon them. Their punishment is to have their heads turned backwards on their bodies and to be compelled to walk backwards through all eternity, their eyes blinded with tears. Thus, those who sought to penetrate the future cannot even see in front of themselves. They attempted to move themselves forward in time, so they must go backwards through all eternity. And as the arts of sorcery are a distortion of God's law, so are their bodies distorted in hell. No more to be said of them. Dante names them and passes on to fill the canto with a lengthy account of the founding of Virgil's native city of Mantua. Now I must sing new griefs. My verses strain to form the matter of the 20th canto of Canticle 1, the Canticle of Pain. My vantage point permitted a clear view of the depths of the pit below, a desolation bathed with tears of its tormented crew, who moved about the circle of the pit at or about the pace of a litany procession. Silent and weeping, they wound round and round it. And when I looked down from their faces, I saw that each of them was hideously distorted between the top of the chest and the lines of the jaw. For the face was reversed on the neck, and they came on backwards, staring backward at their loins, for to look before them was forbidden. Someone, sometime in the grip of a palsy, may have been distorted so, but never to my knowledge, nor do I believe the like was ever seen. Reader, so may God grant you to understand my poem and profit from it. Ask yourself, how could I check my tears, when near at hand I saw the image of our humanity distorted so that the tears that burst from their eyes ran down the cleft of their buttocks? Certainly I wept. I leaned against the jagged face of a rock and wept so that my guide said, "Still? Still like the other fools? There is no place for pity here. Who is more arrogant within his soul? Who is more impious than the one who dares to sorrow at God's judgment? Lift up your eyes and see him the earth swallowed before all the Thebians, at which they cried out, 'Whither do you flee, Amphiaraus? Why do you leave the field?' And he fell headlong through the gaping earth to the feet of Minos, where all sin must yield. Observe how he has made a breast on his back. In life, he wished to see too far before him, and now he must crab backwards around this track. And see Tiresias, who by his arts succeeded in changing himself from a man to a woman, transforming all his limbs and all his parts. Later, he had to strike the two twinned serpents once again with his conjurer's wand before he could resume his manly lineaments. And there is Arunus, his back to that one's belly, the same who in the mountains of the Luni, tilled by the people of Carrera's valley, made a white marble cave his den, and there with unobstructed view observed the sea and the turning constellations year by year. And she, whose unbound hair flows back to hide her breasts, which you cannot see, and also wears all of her hairy parts on that other side, was Manto, who searched countries far and near, then settled where I was born. In that connection, there is a story I would have you hear. Tiresias was her sire. After his death, Thebes, the city of Bacchus, became enslaved, and for many years she roamed about the earth. High in sweet Italy, under the Alps that shut the Tyrrhenian gate of Germany, there lies a lake known as Benecius. High in sweet Italy, 3. High in sweet Italy, under the Alps that shut the Tyrrhenian gate of Germany, there lies a lake known as the Benecius Roundabout. Through endless falls, more than 1,001, Mount Appiane, from Garda to Val Camoncia, is freshened by the waters that flow down into that lake. At its center is a place where the bishops of Brescia, Tarentine, and Verona might give all benediction with equal grace. Peschiera, the beautiful fortress, strong in war against the Brescians and the Bergamese, sits at the lowest point along that shore. There, the waters Benacus cannot hold within its bosom spill and form a river that winds away through pastures green and gold. Still near its source, it strikes a plain, and there it slows and spreads, forming an ancient marsh where the summer heat pollutes the air. The terrible Virgin, passing there by chance, saw dry land at the center of the mire, untilled, devoid of all inhabitants. There, shunning all communion with mankind, she settled with the ministers of her arts, and there she lived, and there she left behind her vacant corpse. Later, the scattered men who lived nearby assembled on that spot, since it was well defended by the fen. Over those whited bones they raised the city, and for who had chosen the place before all others, they named it, with no further augury, Mantua. Far more people lived there once, before sheer madness prompted Casaloti to let Pinamote play him for a dunce. Therefore, I charge you, should you ever hear other accounts of this, to let no falsehood confuse the truth which I have just made clear. And I to him, Master, within my soul your word is certainty, and any other would seem like dead lumps of burned-out coal. But tell me of those people moving down to join the rest. Are any worth noting? For my mind keeps coming back to that alone. And he, that one whose beard spreads like a fleece over his swarthy shoulders, was an augur in the days when so few males remained in Greece that even the cradles were all but empty of sons. He chose the time for cutting the cables at Aulis, and Calchas joined him in these divinations. He is Eurypylus. I sing him somewhere in my high tragedy. You will know the place who know the whole of it. The other there, the one beside him with the skinny shanks, was Michael Scott, who mastered every trick of magic fraud, a prince of mountain banks. See Guido Bonatti there? And see Asdente, who would now be wishing he had stuck to his last, but repents too late, though he repents aplenty. And see on every hand the wretched hags, who left their spinning and sewing for soothsaying, and casting of spells with herbs and dolls and rags. But come, Cain with his bush of thorns appears already on the wave below Seville, above the boundary of the hemispheres. And the moon was full already yesternight, as you must well remember from the wood, for it certainly did not harm you when its light shone down upon you way before the dawn. As he spoke to me, we traveled on. The poets move on, talking as they go, and arrive at the 5th Bolgia. Here the grafters are sunk in boiling pitch and guarded by demons who tear them to pieces with claws and grappling hooks if they catch them above the surface of the pitch. The sticky pitch is symbolic of the sticky fingers of the grafters. It serves to hide them from sight, as their sinful dealings on earth were hidden from men's eyes. The demons, too, suggest symbolic possibilities, for they are armed with grappling hooks and are forever ready to rend and tear all they can get their hands on. The poets watch a demon arrive with a grafting senator of Lucia and fling him onto the pitch where the demons set upon him. To protect Dante from their wrath, Virgil hides him behind some jagged rocks and goes on alone to negotiate with the demons. They set upon him like a pack of mastiffs, but Virgil secures a safe conduct from their leader, Malakota. Thereupon, Virgil calls Dante from hiding, and they are about to set off when they discover that the bridge across the 6th ledge of Bolgia lies shattered. Malakota tells them there is another further on and sends a squad of demons to escort them. Their adventures with the demons continue through the next canto. These 2 cantos can conveniently be remembered as the gargoyle cantos. If the total commedia is built like a cathedral, as so many critics have suggested, it is here certainly that Dante attaches his grotesqueries. At no point in the commedia does Dante give such free rein to his coarsest style. Thus talking of things which my comedy does not care to sing, we passed from one arch to the next until we stood upon its summit. There we checked our steps to study the next fosse and the next vain lamentations of Malebolge. Awesomely dark and desolate it was. As in the Venetian arsenal, the winter through there boils the sticky pitch to caulk the seams of the sea-battered bottoms when no crew can be put to sea, instead of which one starts to build its ship anew. One plugs the planks which have been sprung in many foreign parts. Some hammer at a mast, some at a rib, some make new oars, some braid and coil new lines. One patches up the mainsail, one the jib. So, but by art divine, and not by fire, a viscid pitch boiled in the fosse below, and coated all the bank with gluey mire. I saw the pitch, but I saw nothing in it, except the enormous bubbles of its boiling, which swelled and sank, like breathing, through all the pit. And as I stood and stared into that sink, my master cried, "Take care!" and drew me back from my exposed position on the brink. I turned like one who cannot wait to see the thing he dreads, and who, in sudden fright, runs while he looks, his curiosity competing with his terror. And at my back, I saw a figure that came running towards us across the ridge, a demon, huge and black. Ah, what a face he had, all hate and wildness. Galloping so, with his great wings outspread, he seemed the embodiment of all bitterness. Across each high-hunched shoulder he had thrown one haunch of a sinner, whom he held in place with a great talon around each ankle bone. "Black talons of our bridge," he began to roar, "I bring you one of Santa Zita's elders. Scrub him down while I go back for more. I planted a harvest of them in that city. Everyone there is a grafter except Bonchero. There, yes is no, and no is yes for a fee." Down the sinner plunged, and at once the demon sprung from the cliff. No mastiff ever sprang more eager from the leash to chase a felon. Down plunged the sinner and sank to reappear with his backside arched and his face and both his feet glued to the pitch, almost as if in prayer. But the demons under the bridge who guard that place, and the sinners who are thrown to them, bawled out, "You're out of bounds here for the sacred face. There is no dip in the Serico. Take your look, and then get down in the pitch and stay below unless you want the taste of a grappling hook. They raked him with more than 100 hooks, bellowing, "Here you dance below the covers! Graft all you can down there! Nobody checks your books!" They dipped him down into that pitch exactly as a chef makes scullery boys dip meat in a broiler, holding it with their hooks from floating free. And the master said, "You best had not be seen by these fiends till I am ready. Crouch down there. One of these rocks will serve as a screen. And whatsoever violence you see done to me, you have no cause to fear. I know these matters. I have been through this once and come back safely." With that, he walked on past the edge of the bridge, and it wanted all his courage to look calm from the moment he arrived on the 6th ridge. With that same storm and fury that arouses all the house when the hounds leap at a tramp who suddenly falls to pleading where he pauses. So rushed those fiends from below, and all the pack pointed their gleaming pitchforks at my guide. But he stood fast and cried to them, "Stand back! Before those hooks and grapples and make two free, send up one of your crew to hear me out. Then ask yourselves if you still care to rip me." All of them cried as one, "Let Malakota go down!" So the pack stood, and one of them came forward, saying, "What good does he think this will do?" "Do you think, Malakota," my good master said, "that you would see me here, having arrived this far already, safe from you and every dread, without divine will and propitious fate? Let me pass on, for it is willed in heaven that I must show another this dread state." The demon stood there on the flinty berm, so taken aback he let his pitchfork drop. And then he said to the others, "Take care not to harm him." "Oh, you, crouched like a cat," my guide called to me, "among the jagged rock piles of the bridge, come down to me, for now you may come safely." Hearing him, I hurried down the ledge, and the demons all pressed forward when I appeared, so I feared they might not keep their pledge. So once I saw the Paisan infantry march out under truce from the fortresses at Caprona, staring in fright at the ranks of the enemy, I pressed the whole of my body against my guide, and not for an instant did I take my eyes off those black fiends who scowled on every side. They swung their forks, saying to one another, "Shall I give him a touch in the rump?" And answering, "Sure, give him a taste to pay for all his bother." But the demon who was talking to my guide turned around and cried to him, "At ease there, snatcher." And then to us, "There's no road on this side. The arch lies all in pieces in the pit. If you must go on, follow along this ridge. There's just another cliff to cross behind it. In just 5 hours, it will be since the bridge fell. 1,266 years and a day. That was the time the big quake shook all hell. I'll send a squad of my boys along that way to see if anyone's airing himself below. You can go with them. There will be no foul play. Front and center, Grizzly and Helkin." He began to order them. "You two, Dead Dog, Curlybeard, take charge of a squad of 10. Take Grafter and Dragon Tooth along with you. Pigtusk, Catclaw, Cramper, and Crazy Red. Keep a sharp lookout on the boiling glue as you move along, and see that these gentlemen are not molested until they reach the crag, where they can find a way across the den." "In the name of heaven, master," I cried, "what sort of guides are these? Let us go on alone if you know the way. Who can trust such an escort? If you are as wary as you used to be, you surely see them grind their teeth at us and knot their beetle brows so threateningly." And he, "I do not like this fear in you. Let them gnash and nod as they please. They menace only the sticky wretches simmering in that stew. They turned along the bank in a line. Before they started, all of them together had stuck their pointed tongues out as a sign to their captain that they wished permission to pass, and he had made a trumpet of his ass. The poets set off with their escorts of demons. Dante sees the grafters lying in the pitch like frogs in water, with only their muzzles out. They disappear as soon as they sight the demons, and only a ripple on the surface betrays their presence. One of the grafters, an identified Navarrese, ducks too late and is seized by the demons who are about to claw him, but Curlybeard holds them back while Virgil questions him. The wretch speaks of his fellow sinners while the uncontrollable demons rake him from time to time with their hooks. The Navarrese offers to lure some of his fellow sufferers into the hands of the demons, and when his plan is accepted, he plunges into the pitch and escapes. Helkin and Grizzly fly after him, but too late. They start a brawl in midair and fall into the pitch themselves. Curlybeard immediately organizes a rescue party, and the poets, fearing the bad temper of the frustrated demons, take advantage of the confusion to slip away. I have seen horsemen breaking camp. I have seen the beginning of the assault, the march and the muster, and at times the retreat and riot. I have been where chargers trampled your land. I have seen columns of foragers, shocks of tourney, and running of tilts. I have seen the endless lines march to bells, drums, trumpets from far and near. I have seen them march to signals from a castle. I have seen them march with native and foreign gear. But never yet have I seen horse or foot, nor ship in range of land, nor sight of star, take its direction from so low a toot. We went in with the 10 fiends, savage, cruel, but in church with saints with stewpots in the tavern, as the old proverb wisely bids us to do. All my attention was fixed upon the pitch, to observe the people who were boiling in it, and the customs and punishments of that ditch. As dolphins surface and begin to flip their arch backs from the sea, warning the sailors to fall to and begin to secure ship, so now and then some soul, to ease his pain, showed us a glimpse of his back above the pitch, and as quick as lightning, disappeared again. And as, at the edge of a ditch, frogs squat about, hiding their feet and bodies in the water, leaving only their muzzles sticking out, so stood the sinners in that dismal ditch. But as Curlybeard approached, only a ripple showed where they had ducked back into the pitch. I saw, the dread of it still haunts me to this day, one linger a bit too long. As it sometimes happens, one frog remains when another spurts away. And Catclaw, who was nearest, ran a hook through the sinner's pitchy hair and hauled him in. He looked like an otter dripping from the brook. I knew the names of all the fiends by then. I had made a note of them at the first muster, and, marching, had listened and checked them over again. "Hey, Crazy Red!" the crew of demons cried all together, "and give him a taste of your claws. Dig him up a little. Off with his hide." And I then, "Master, can you find out, please, the name and history of that luckless one who has fallen into the hands of his enemies?" My guide approached that wraith from the hot tar and asked him whence he came. The wretch replied, "I was raised in the kingdom of Navarre. My mother placed me in service to a knight, for she had borne me to a squanderer who killed himself when he ran through his birthright. Then I became a domestic in the service of good King Tybalt. Then I began to graft, and I account for it in this hot crevice." And Pig Tusk, who at the end of his lower lip shot forth 2 teeth, more powerful than a boar's, made the wretch feel how one of them could rip. The mouse had come among bad cats. But here Curlybeard locked arms around him, crying, "While I've got a hold of him, the rest stand clear." And turning his face to my guide, "If you want to ask him anything else," he added, "ask away before the others tear him limb from limb." And my guide to the sinner, "I should like to know if among the other souls beneath the pitch are any Italians." And the wretch, "Just now I left a shade who came from parts nearby. Were I still in the pitch with him, for then these hooks would not be giving me the cause to cry." And suddenly Grafter bellowed in great heat, "We've stood already!" And he hooked the sinner's arm, and raking it, ripped off a chunk of meat. Then Dragontooth wanted to play too, reaching down for a catch at the sinner's legs, but Curlybeard wheeled round and around with a terrifying frown. And when the fiends had somewhat given ground and calmed a little, my guide without delay asked the wretch, who was staring at his wound, "Who was the sinner from whom you say you made your evil-starred departure to come ashore among these fiends?" And the wretch, "It was the shade of Friar Gomitra, the crooked stem of every fraud. And when his master's enemies were in his hands, he won high praise from them. He took their money without case or docket and let them go. He was in all his dealings no petty bursar, but a kingly pocket. With him, his endless crony in the fosse is Don Michael Zanch of Logodro. They babble about Sardinia without pause. But look, see that fiend grinning at your side? There's much more I should like to tell you, but oh, I think he means to grate my hide." But their grim sergeant wheeled, sensing foul play, and turning on Cramper, who seemed set to strike, ordered, "Clear off, you buzzard! Clear off, I say! If either of you would like to see and hear Tuscans or Lombards," the pale sinner said, "I can sure lure them out of hiding, if you'll stand clear and let me sit at the edge of the ditch and get all these black talons out of sight. For while they're here, no one will leave the pitch. In exchange for myself, I can fish you up a pretty mess of souls as you like. I have to only whistle the way we do when one of us gets free." Dead Dog raised his snout as he listened to him, and, shaking his head, said, "Listen to the grafter, spinning his tricks so he can jump from the berm." And the sticky wretch, who was all treachery, "Oh, I am more than tricky when there's a chance to see my friends in greater misery." Dead Dog raised his snout as he listened to him, and then, shaking his head, he said, "Listen to the grafter, spinning his tricks so he can jump from the berm." And the sticky wretch, who was all treachery, "Oh, I am more than tricky when there's a chance to see my friends in greater misery." Helkin, against the will of the crew, could hold no longer. "If you jump," he said to the scheming wretch, "I won't come after you at a gallop, but like a hawk after a mouse, we'll clear the edge and hide behind the bank. Let's see if you're trickster enough for all of us." Reader, here is new game. The fiends withdrew from the bank's edge, and Dead Dog, who at first was most against it, led the savage crew. The Navarrese chose his moment carefully, and planting both his feet firmly against the ground, he leaped, and in an instant he was free. The fiends were stung with shame, and of the lot Helkin most, who had been the cause of it. He leaped out madly, bellowing, "You're caught!" But little good it did him. Terror pressed harder than wings. The sinner dove from sight, and the fiend in full flight had to raise his breast. A duck, when the falcon dives, will disappear, all in a flash, while he returns defeated and weary up in the air. Grizzly, in a rage at the sinner's flight, flew after Helkin, hoping the wraith would escape so he might find an excuse to start a fight. And as soon as the Grafters sank below the pitch, Grizzly turned his talons against Helkin, locked with him claw to claw above the ditch. But Helkin was sparrowhawk enough for two and clawed him well, and ripping one another, they plunged together into the hot stew. The heat broke up the brawl immediately, but their wings were smeared in pitch and they could not rise. Curlybeard, upset as his company commanded 4 to fly to the other coast at once with their grapples. At top speed, the fiends divided, each one to his post. Some on the near edge, some along the far, they stretched out their hooks to the clotted pair who were already cooked deep through the scar of their first burn. And turning to one side, we slipped off, leaving them thus occupied. That was Canto 20, 21, and 22 of the Inferno by Dante Alighieri. I don't know what is going on with Canto 20, but I read up on it so that I would know what was going on, and I don't know if I never understood it or what, but in Canto 20, Dante stops dead. He stops dead, and we're in the middle of the story in hell, and he goes somewhere and he sees people that steal, and he sees all this other stuff, but Dante is so sickened by what he sees at the beginning of Canto 20 that he refused to write about it. Instead, Canto 20 is talking about Virgil's hometown of Mantua, which I guess is a cool origin story for Virg, but to me, it threw me right off. We don't have much further to go. Like, you remember how we were going in circles? Circle 1, 1A, you know, like you get circle 1, circle 2, circle 3, circle 4, right? And in circle 1, circle 2, they had something called rounds. So it was circle 1, round 2, circle 2, round 1, round 2. But when you get down to Bolgia, that's not how it works. It goes from rounds to ditches, right? So, I'm losing my thought. I'm losing it. Oh, it's gone. Bolgia has ditches. The other places have circles. But we don't have many floors. Oh, that was it. We don't have many floors to go down. Like, there's not 6 or 7 more levels. We only have 1 more floor. It just happens to be that there are a lot of ditches on said floor. Oh, that was so confusing. But anywho, we'll deal with that next time, because this has been Doctorpiece Theater, and my name is Dr. Dennis Business. And as always, my friends,